In 1962, the U.S. military conducted an experiment to see what would happen if people were kept awake for several days. What they discovered was terrifying and has led to many conspiracy theories. This is the disturbing truth behind the sleep experiment of 1962. In the early 1960s, the U.S. military conducted a series of experiments on sleep. These included the effects of loud noises on sleep and how different drugs could be used to control sleep. But perhaps the most famous of these experiments was the one that saw what would happen if volunteers were kept awake for as long as possible. The experiment was conducted at the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute in Pensacola, Florida. And it all started with 12 volunteers who signed up for the study. They were given a drug called Pemeline, which is a stimulant similar to caffeine, and were then kept awake for several days. The military wanted to see if it was possible to create a bomb that would keep someone awake for 24 hours or more. And they also wanted to see what the side effects would be. The volunteers were monitored closely by medical professionals who were on hand to stop the experiment at any time if they felt that it was becoming too dangerous. But the military was surprised when the first volunteer was able to stay awake for 17 days without any major side effects. In fact, the only reason he stopped was because he had to work. He was a radar repairman in the Navy, and he couldn't keep working because his shift would end, and then he didn't have to sleep. But this wasn't the end of the experiment. There were still 11 volunteers left, and the military wanted to see how long they could stay awake. Unfortunately, this is where things took a dark turn. After the first volunteer was able to stay awake for 17 days, the next one stayed awake for 15 days. Then the third volunteer stayed awake for 13 days. And by day 11, only 4 of the original 12 volunteers were still awake. But they were all showing signs of fatigue and were not able to perform their tasks as well as they did at the beginning of the experiment. It was at this point that the military decided to end the experiment. They had learned enough and didn't want to risk the lives of the remaining volunteers. But this is where things get really creepy. As the 4 remaining volunteers were being let out of the lab, one of them turned to a researcher and wrote down the words, "God doesn't sleep. He waits." This is obviously a reference to the biblical passage in Isaiah 40:28, which says, "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable." Some people believe that this is a sign that the military was playing God by trying to keep these men awake for so long. But there may be another explanation. The 4 remaining volunteers were probably suffering from severe sleep deprivation, which can cause hallucinations and paranoia. It's possible that this is what caused one of the volunteers to write down the words "God does" on sleep. He waits, or it could just be a coincidence. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one.